Okay, so this is lesson 4 of the distributive property. You're going to try the do now, which says using your knowledge of integers and your calculator, compute the following. So you're going to use your calculators, make sure you're inputting negatives where you see negatives or subtraction where you see subtraction. And you're going to pause the video, try these 10, and then start it back up and check your answers when you're done plugging them in. So at this point, guys, you should have tried 1 through 10 for the do now. Number 1, 5 plus negative 3 is positive 2. Number 2, 20 times negative 4 is negative 80. Number 3, 8 minus 25 is a negative 17. Number 4, negative 7 plus 18 is 11. Number 5, the way you would put that in the calculator is you're going to use the division symbol. So negative 45 divided by 9 is negative 5. Number 6, negative 8 plus 24 is 16. Number 7, negative 7 times negative 4 is a positive 28. 16 minus 25 is negative 9. Negative 27 plus 18 is again negative 9. And then negative 49 divided by negative 7, again, you're using the division symbol for the fraction, is a positive 7. So again, this was just a review of integers, utilizing your calculator and doing some operations. So last week we did talk about the distributive property a little bit already. So the distributive property says that you are multiplying over a set of parentheses. So a lot of times, when you're doing this, if you think about Halloween candy and you think about the day of Halloween, you're standing at your door handing out candy to kids, and you have 2 kids come up to your door, one dressed as an angel, one dressed as a devil. You're going to hand candy to both children, right? So you're going to take that candy, right? You're going to distribute it to the angel, which is what you're seeing here. Now the angel has candy. And then you're going to take that candy and you're going to distribute it to the devil, which you're seeing here. Now the devil has candy. So as long as your terms in the parenthesis both get that candy or that number that's going to be on the outside, then you've distributed correctly. The other big thing is that you are multiplying when you're doing the distributive property. So you want to make sure that you're multiplying your terms. So example 1 says 3 parentheses x plus 6. So the number outside the parenthesis is a positive 3. And we're going to distribute that to both terms here. So I'm going to do it step by step, and I'm going to write out my work. So I'm going to do 3 times x first. Then I'm taking that 3, and I'm going to distribute or multiply it by that other number in the parenthesis, the 6. So I'm doing 3 times now 6. Now I want to just do my work. 3 times x, you can't really multiply, so you're just sticking them together without the dot in between for multiplication. And then 3 times 6 is going to be a positive 18. And that's it. This here is your answer. And this part here, this portion of your work, that's your showing work. That's your work for this problem. So if this was like a part 2 on a test, you would have to show me that as your work, okay? So now in the second one, what we're going to distribute is that negative 7, and we're going to distribute it, even though it's on the end of our parenthesis here, we're still going to distribute or multiply it in. Okay, so first thing we're going to multiply it to is that negative 5. So you're doing negative 7 times 5b. I think I said negative 5 before, so sorry about that. Then you're going to take it and you're going to take that same negative 7, right? And you're going to distribute it to the negative 4. So now you're doing negative 4 times a negative 7. And you want to make sure you carry those symbols, the negatives. So for the first one, negative 7 times 5 is a negative 35b. And then here, negative 7 times negative 4 is a positive, negative times a negative is a positive 28. So again, this is our answer, and this is our work. Okay, so let's try this again. Here's two more just like that. So the example 2, you would take 8 now, even though it's on the end, and you're going to distribute it into the parenthesis to both terms. So you're doing 8 times 7, and then you're going to do 8 times A. 8 times 7 would be 56, plus a positive 8A. And then that's your answer. Okay, the next one, you're distributing a -2 to the 3x first. So I like to write this out as I go. So it's -2 times 3x, and then you're going to do -2 times 5. So -2 times 5. So -2 times 3x would be -6x, and a -2 times 5 would be a -10. And there's your answer. So just make sure you've written all this work and the answers down for these. It's going to be helpful to have the work portion of all of this, because if you need to refer back to your notes, you'll have it clearly written out for you and how you got your answer. Sometimes it's hard to look back at notes if you don't know how you got your answer. Okay, so example 3 is just like example 2A and 2B. The only difference is that there actually is no number written here, right? So when you're looking at this, you're actually going to imagine that that negative is actually a -1. And what's inside the parenthesis would stay the same. So now when you're thinking of distributing, you're distributing that -1. So it's -1 times 2y, and then it's -1 times 3x, -3x. I'm sorry, my stylus does not work that great. So this would be -3x. Okay, so -1 times 2y is -2y, and a -1 times a -3 would be a positive 3x. So there's your answer. Okay, so number 4, again, very similar, but now you have 1, 2, 3 terms in those parentheses. So now you're going to actually distribute or multiply 3 times. So you're taking that 2 that's on the outside and you're multiplying 3 different times. So the first one is 2 times 3x. The second one is 2 times a -5, because the negative carries with it. So 2 times a -5. And then the last one would be 2 times 4y. Okay, and now you're just going to multiply. So 2 times 3 would be 6x. 2 times -5 would be -10. And 2 times 4 would be a positive 8y. And then that would be your answer. So again, you started with 3 terms in the parenthesis. You're ending with 3 terms as your answer because you're multiplying to all of those terms. They're each getting, remember, like that piece of candy, that number on the outside. Okay, so number 5 is the exact same thing, kind of incorporates examples 3 and 4 now because, again, you have that negative, which again we can imagine as a -1, and it might be a little easier. So you would have x plus 3y minus 3 still. So the only difference is that you are now distributing that -1. So -1 times x, -1 times x is just -x. -1 times a 3y, so -1 times a 3y is just -3y. And then -1 times a -3 is a positive 3. So again, your final answer is this last one where you end up with 3 terms just like you originally had in the parentheses. If the video also, guys, goes too fast, remember you can always go to the copy of notes section and pull up the copy of notes if you need to copy them that way. Okay, so here, this one's a little different looking as well because now we have actually 2 sets of parentheses. So we're actually going to do 2 separate distributions. So the first one, we're taking the 4, and that's what we're going to distribute. So 4, for the first one, 4 times 2h, and then you're going to do 4 times 1. So the answer for this one would be 8h plus 4. Because 4 times 2 is 8 and 4 times 1 is 4. Now for that second parenthesis, you're taking the 3 and that's what you're going to distribute. So 3 times 4h gets written first, and then 3 times 7. So 3 times 4 would be a positive 12h, and 3 times 7 would be a positive 21. So now, technically, we haven't learned how to combine things, so you're technically done. You've distributed, you've done the work that I've asked, but if you remember from last year, we have something called like terms here. So just to show you, we could combine anything that has the same letter. So 8h and 12h both have an h attached to them. So they are considered like terms, and we can add them together now to get 20h. And the same thing happens for 4 and 21. 4 plus 21 is 25. Again, though, this is a whole separate lesson that we are going to eventually do. So obviously what I boxed off, that answer, the final answer in black, that works. Like you could, this is an acceptable answer, right? So is this level here, because I haven't taught you how to combine like terms yet. So if you just do this part and you're able to do this, that means you've learned the distributive property. So take a minute, make sure you wrote that all down. Pause it if you need to. Okay, example 7 is the exact same thing. So we're going to distribute twice. So we have a 7 here. So 7 times 3 would be our first multiplication. And then 7 times x. So I'm going to simplify that first. So 7 times 3 is 21, and 7 times x is a positive 7x. Then if I keep going, I am now distributing a negative 4. Make sure you carry that symbol. So negative 4 times 5y, and then negative 4 times a negative 2. So negative 4 times 5y is a negative 20y. And negative 4 times negative 2 is a positive 8. And now when we look at this one, I can't combine any of my letters. So again, this is an acceptable answer. You can stop right there. Or you can realize that you have 2 numbers or constants. You have 21 and you have 8, right? Those are like terms. They're both just plain numbers. So I could technically combine them and get 29, right? Positive 29. And then what I could do is just bring down everything else that I didn't combine, because I can't combine, and I could write my answer like that. Again, though, this is an acceptable answer. You haven't learned how to do what I just showed you, but you might remember it from last year. So again, pause the video if you need to take down those notes and you just watched it, and then move on. Okay, so example 8. Okay, same kind of question. Now, the big thing with example 8 is that this section of the problem is not going to be distributed to. So you are only distributing this negative 2 to these 3 terms, and this negative 5s plus t, it just kind of stays the same. And at the end, we kind of look at it, but it stays that way for now. So here we're going to distribute negative 2. Okay, and I'm going to kind of eliminate that work step for this one since we've been doing it with that work. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Negative 2 times a negative 4s would be a positive 8s. And a negative 2 times a positive 6t is a negative 12t. So again, the pink is what we've distributed, and that's what our answer was. This black section here, we just carried down because there's no parentheses around it and I'm not distributing to it. Now I can look to see if I can combine like terms, but again, this is a completely acceptable answer, leaving it like this for now, okay? So if we can combine anything here, I'm going to look, negative 10 is just kind of negative 10. I don't have any other regular numbers, so that can just come down. Then I have an 8s. Anything else I have with an s can be combined with that. So I have negative 5s. So 8 plus a negative 5, or 8 minus 5, is a positive 3s. And then I have a negative 12t and a positive t. And if I combine those or add them up, this has like a imaginary 1 in front of it. Negative 12 plus 1 is negative 11t. So this would be the answer if we combine like terms. And again, you don't have to because technically you haven't learned it. Pause the video, take down whatever you missed as I was doing it, and then move on. So now you have your practice problems. So with the practice problems, guys, pause the video and try them on your own before you just watch and get the answers. Okay, so number 1, what is the simplified form of the expression you are going to distribute? So you're going to take that 6 and you're going to multiply it into your parentheses. So 6 times 4 would be 24x, and 6 times a negative 7 would be a negative 42. And now you're going to look for that in your answer choices, which would be choice 2. Okay, number 2 says a part of Jennifer's work to solve the equation 2 parentheses 6x squared minus 3 equals 11x squared minus x is shown below. So you have her given, which is that first line, and then the step 1. We want to know what property justifies this step. So the biggest thing, and we kind of have talked about this in lesson 3, is looking at what's different. So if we look at only this side of the equal sign, what's different from the first line to the second line? And you can see that the parentheses are now gone. So in order for that to take place, you would have had to have distributed. Well, 2 times 6 is 12, and 2 times a negative 3 is negative 6. So this is actually showing you the distributive property. So it would be choice 4. So now, obviously, you would still have to look at that other side. And if you look at the other side, it's identical from the first line to the second line. So the only property being shown is the distributive property here. Okay, number 3, what is the simplified form of this expression? So again, we're just distributing. You have a lot of negatives though. So negative 2, and I'll show you the work here. Negative 2 times a negative 5x, and then you're going to do negative 2 times negative 8. So negative 2 times a negative 8. So negative and a negative makes this a positive 10x, and a negative and a negative again makes that a positive 16. So that would be choice 4. Okay, and this is just like example 2. When solving this equation, 12x squared minus 7x equals 6 minus 2 parentheses x squared minus 1. Evan wrote 12x squared minus 7x, which is the same as the first one, equals 6 minus 2x squared plus 2. So if you notice, as I was reading, this here changed and became this. So if I kind of write them, and this is how I like to do these, on top of each other, it might be easier to kind of see what's changed and how it changed. So if you do it like that, you can kind of see that what they did was, again, they got rid of these parentheses by distributing. Negative 2 times x squared is negative 2x squared, and negative 2 times a negative 1 is a positive 2. So again, we see or are seeing the distributive property of multiplication, and it's over subtraction because this is subtraction. Okay, so that's the end of the lesson. Make sure if you missed anything, you go back to the copy of notes section in the Google Classroom and you can fill in anything, or you can always rewind.